I'm Joshua. I play guitar and we came as Romans, and we just released our brand new album, the first in 5 years, called Darkbloom.
Good morning, Joshua. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah. How are you doing over there?
Yeah, good, mate. She's pretty early in the morning, but I'm surviving. Coffee and toast is a good thing.
Yeah, I'm about to get a coffee in a second, and it's 5 o'clock. So
Oh, Jesus. I'm 9 hours behind you.
yep, yep.
So as you mentioned, man, Rick Ames Romans recently released your sixth album, Darkbloom. So how's the early response been?
It has been insane. Better than I could have ever expected. Especially because we had such a long period in between albums. Our last album, Cold Like War, came out in 2017. And for anyone that follows the band, obviously we lost our singer Kyle shortly after that, and took some time to figure out if we could even be a band anymore, if we wanted to be a band anymore. And then, took some time to write a record that is solely about our grieving process that we dealt with, everything that we went through emotionally, navigating the loss of Kyle.
Yeah, cool. So I don't want to talk about that too much because I know it must be pretty tough on you guys, mate. But the album is dedicated to Kyle, as you say. So is that dedicated lyrically, musically, spiritually, all of the above?
Yeah, so first and foremost, musically, we wanted to write an album that we thought Kyle would love if he was still with us. And I think we nailed that one on the head. Musically, I love the album. All of us love the album. I think it is the best version of We Came as Romans that we have put out yet. And lyrically, the songs are just about different emotions that we felt on our way navigating through the grieving process, because you learn a lot going through that it's not just like, oh, I'm just sad all the time, I lost my friend. There's a lot of different emotions that are felt, and we wanted to give all those things their own place in a song. And so I think each song is very different in what it talks about, how it describes the things that we were going through, which is really important because, no one wants to hear an album of 10 songs that say the same thing over and over and over again. So we did our best to make it as different as possible with the topic of each song.
Yeah. And did it change the writing process at all, like writing about something so personal?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing with the writing process that was different was that, we were locked down because of COVID.
Yeah.
And, writing a record on tour is terrible and really hard. Like, it's really hard to write on the road. There's so many distractions and just a bunch of shit going on all the time. And, so being able to not be on tour, be home and only focus on writing a record was really beneficial and really helpful. And by the time we got in the studio with Drew Folk to actually put the record together, we had like 30 songs to go through and, cut a bunch of them. And we've never done that before. Half the time we've gotten in the studio, we're like, we need more songs. We don't have enough yet. And, we got there this time and we're like, okay, we have 3 times as many songs as we need. And we still ended up writing, I think, 5 more songs once we were in the studio. So
Wow. So with that many songs, what was the selection criteria like? Like, did each band member get to vote on 4 or 5 songs they wanted to keep, or that was the process?
kind of. So Dave, Andy, and we sat down with Drew Folk, our producer, and we made an Excel spreadsheet of all the songs. And then we rated them all from red, yellow, green. Green was good to go, let's put it on the album. Yellow was, I like this song, but we need to change a few things before I think it's good enough. And red was just, no, it's not good enough. And so any song that was red for any member, we were just like, all right, we'll trust them. We'll just cut it. We're not going to fight for it. We have enough songs. And then any song that was yellow, we talked about the ways that we would make it better, what we wanted to change in it, what could be better. And then, if it was unanimously green, we we're like, okay, that's on the album for sure, which there was like 3 songs that were, that were green. And then the others we really worked on throughout the studio process to see if we can make them into something that deserved to be on the album. And one of the deciding factors in that was lyrical content. There were a few songs that I loved, that I thought were awesome, that we all thought were really awesome, but they were kind of just saying the same thing as another song we already had, and we didn't want to put both those songs on the album to be saying the same thing. So it was, well, let's choose the song that we unanimously think is better, and we'll let that one go, just based on the fact that it's too similar lyrically to another track.
Yeah, cool. And the press release alludes to Darkbloom as ushering in an ambitious, courageous new era for We Came as Romans. Would you agree with that statement?
Kind of. I think so. It's one of those things where when we wrote the record, the only thing we were focused on is writing the absolute best versions of our band. We weren't trying to do anything. We weren't trying to like push some crazy boundary and get some recognition in another sphere or any of that. We weren't trying to write a song that would go on the radio because we need to be over in that world or any of that. And but at least, in America, active rock radio is actually just kind of naturally getting heavier and heavier. And, all of our singles have made it on that. And we have been seeing really good success over there, which is wild because we, in the past, we've actually tried to write songs for radio before and it did not turn out well. Who would have thought?
Yes,
Who would have thought? It's like, if you just actually, make music for yourself, for your band, something that you like, something with integrity, and it succeeds, in multiple spheres, awesome. That's wild. And so for us, I think it's just, let's just write the best songs that we can, and we don't have to force them to be anything that they're not. They're just going to be the best songs that is our band.
Yeah, very cool. So go back in time a bit, mate. Like We Came as Romans formed back in 2005. So what was the musical climate like back then that gave birth to the band, and where did you guys fit in initially?
Oh man. So back when we started, I was 15. I'm 33 now. So it's been Dave and I are the two founding members left in the band. And funny enough, when I joined the band, I didn't listen to any heavy music at all. I just wanted to be in a band, and this was the option. So I was like, yeah, of course I like heavy music. Yeah, I don't know what that is. This was before like metalcore was a term. Like people just called it screamo. It's like, oh, I'll be in a screamo band, sure. And so, I went to the first band practice because they were an incomplete band, and I tried out to be the guitar player, and they're like, yeah, we want you to be in the band. And I was like, awesome. I'll be in the band. And we're playing our like second show ever, and they're playing a song in between changeover over the speakers, and I see like everyone's singing it, and I'm like, what is this song? And the bass band then, my friend Johnny, he was like, oh, this is Reinventing Your Exit by a band called Underoath. And I was like, I've never heard of that band before. So it's like I was kind of in the wrong place. But then of course, I started listening to Underoath. They're Only Chasing Safety was obviously a massive CD. And my band members at the time were like, oh, you should check out Pass the Flask from The Bled. And there's this local band from Michigan that just got signed. They're called Chiodos. And it was like, yeah, I was like just discovering what heavy music was for like the very first time. And meanwhile, I'm like already in a band that's trying to play those songs. Awesome. So I don't know how that worked out. And then back then, like the local scene in Detroit and Michigan, where we're all from, was actually like really good. We were playing shows, every weekend at a VFW hall we rented out, or a small venue. And, if we got lucky, the Devil Wears Prada would drive up from Ohio, and they'd play a show, and we'd get to open for them. That was like the first big band we ever opened for, was opening for Prada, back when I was 17. And then, Amorosa would drive up from Ohio as well. And we played like the weird local shows with Miss May I and Attack and stuff like that. And, if we were lucky on the weekend, we'd drive to Chicago and play some show for 20 people. And that was like crazy for us to do. And then, it just kind of went from there. I had a really big August Burns Red phase when they had Thrill Seeker and then Messengers come out. They're like first and second CD. I was like super into that. I went and bought the same guitar that their guitarist JB played on stage. I literally went and bought it because I was such a fan.
That's
And
cool.
started writing our first EP and our CD that our first CD to Plant a Seed. You know, we eventually got signed off our first EP and stuff. And like I was like this huge August Burns Red fan, and I loved Under Oath, and that was like huge inspirations to me. And like since then, we've done like 8 tours with August Burns Red, and we're like friends now.
That's
And
wicked.
I told JB that story about just being a super fan, and he was like, "That's actually hilarious," because now we're like in our 30s and just like look back and laugh at that stuff.
Oh, that's so cool. Good story, man. And we came as Romans have introduced things to your music, such as orchestral instrumentalization and keyboards and synths, which aren't normally a feature of the metalcore genre you've been labeled in. So, how did the initial idea come about to add those things?
I mean, it all started way back on our EP. I was writing it on this program called Tab It, where you're literally like tabbing out parts, and you can tab out keyboard parts and it's all MIDI, so it sounds like a shitty video game. Like it doesn't sound good at all. But when we went to Joey Sturgis, I was able to export all those MIDI files and then import them to his computer where he had like real actual keyboard sounds. And him and I would spend like hours together, like sitting and just going through keyboard sounds and cool arpeggiators and all that stuff because we wanted to make something that sounded awesome. Because at the time, the Dove Wears Prada was just like the biggest band to ever exist. You know, they were like for us like the first true like metalcore band, and they were from real close. And you know, they had went to Joey Sturgis also, and they had really cool keyboard parts. So we were like, oh, we want to do that too. But I also loved Under Oath, and Under Oath had the whole electronic drums thing kind of on lock. That was like part of their signature sound. Their keyboard player Chris making all these electronic drum sounds and stuff. And I was like, well, I want that too. I want both of these things. And so I'd MIDI them out on the computer, and we'd put them on Joey's computer and just go through and try to craft these sounds that sounded just like awesome to, you know, 19-year-old me and Joey. And so I think we like really dialed it in onto Plant a Seed, and made something for at the time seemed really like unique to this new genre that was metalcore, you know. And then on this second record, I was like, okay, I want to do something different. I don't want electronica stuff. I want natural sounding stuff. I played trombone all the way till I graduated high school. I was in symphony band. I was in the concert band, jazz band, all of that. And I was like, I really want, you know, I want strings, I want horns, I want timpanis, I want real, quote, real instruments. Even though they were all fake because they were made on a computer, but they're real, you know. And so we really went that route pretty hard on the second record. And then after that, I was just like, let's just not put a label to any of this. Like, if it sounds good and it's right for the song, let's do it. You know, keyboards, production, all of that is just a staple of our band. That's what we established ourselves as. We're always going to have that in our music. Let's just do what sounds right for the song and not worry if it's too electronic or if it's too stringy.
Yeah.
You know, because there's some of that stuff that got really generic, and you know, every band was trying to do certain things. And some bands did it poorly, some bands did it well. But then if you did it well, people still thought you did it poorly because other bands, like, it was a whole dumb place to be in like 2013 to 2015, maybe 2012 even. And so, you know, we just kept going with it and was just like, okay, let's try to just do what's best for us. And I think we really locked it in on our fifth record, on Cold Like War. Kyle, our singer, actually ended up like creating almost all of those keyboard sounds like on his laptop, and he would just send them over to Drew, and you know, they'd put them on his computer and tweak them a bit. And you know, so all of those production sounds and stuff were actually just created specifically for those songs in the studio. And I think that's really where we started to dial in, you know, our a sound that felt like ours, you know.
Very cool. All right, Joshua. Well, thanks very much for your time today, mate. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. The album Darkbloom is out now, so wrap your ears around it, and best of luck, brother. I hope you get through the rest of the day.
Thanks so much.
No worries, man. Have a good one.
All right, see ya.